We have different sizes of bronzes here in the gallery. Could you explain what a maquette is?
Yes, a maquette is a smaller model that is scaled up. We often create our statues in a smaller model to be able to present our idea, and that way we've got something to work to make the enlargements from. The common term is maquette, and a maquette is a study model that's enlarged. They're often 24-inch models. This piece here, the World War I Bluebird, this is a smaller model that we scaled up. This is the size that we presented our idea, and the finished piece is outside the Regina Legislature on the World War I cenotaph, and she's life-size. She was placed there approximately 2 years ago.
So smaller models or maquettes are also for sale, are they?
Yes, they are. They're often done to help pay for the statues. Mm-hmm. We also did a smaller model of a Mountie to help supplement some of the costs for the Mayerthorpe Fallen 4 project that we completed a number of years ago.
Yeah, and there is a project from the World War I that you did in France. Could you explain what this is all about here? There are some casts of carvings, wall carvings, that go back to 1917 as they are dated.
Yes, I was approached by an elderly gentleman, Mr. Ambler, and his father had served in the First World War, and these carvings were done in the caverns below Vimy Ridge. The caverns were used to house soldiers so they could replenish the front line without the enemy seeing where the soldiers came from. These carvings were lost for more than 75 years. When they were rediscovered in the cavern, Mr. Ambler, the son of the gentleman in the First World War, had asked me to go to France and reproduce these and repatriate them back to Canada. The carvings are from the Hap and Cap badges from the regiments that he served in. The dates on these are 1917. It was quite an honor to get involved with this project and be able to repatriate them back to Canada. There's a copy on exhibit at the Calgary Military Museums.
Yeah. So you went to France with your rubber mold and took the rubber impressions of the actual carving, and then you did the positive reproduction in what material?
I used a form of a polyurethane resin to reproduce them because the color of the cave walls is quite light. It's a beige color with a chalky substance to them. I tried to reproduce that as closely as I could.
And the color and the badges, the original badges that are reproduced on the wall are also included in the panel, right?
Yes. He was a stone mason, and these are larger productions of the cap and hat badges.
Yeah. And a photograph of the soldier in
yes.
1917 or around that time.
Yes, this one here is in England, and he's outfitted in his military, and on the back it was actually a postcard.
Did he survive the war?
He did, but he was injured.
He was injured, yeah. And the maybe last item in the gallery, are these ducks or are they geese?
These are Canadian geese.
Could you tell us where we can find them and what purpose they serve?
Yes, these geese, there's a set of 5, and we titled them A Family of Canadians. I have 3 on display here. These are slightly larger than life size. They're located in Creekside in northwest Calgary. They're in the public park.
And if I sat down on one, would it collapse?
No, we took a little bit of leniency and made the legs a little heavier so they would support body weight of children and adults.
Yeah. You did Monument of Wayne Gretzky. how large was he in the final product? Was he the life size or was he a larger size?
Wayne Gretzky was done by John Weaver, an artist we've worked with for many years out of British Columbia. He was an Albertan for many years, but he's moved to BC to be closer to his grandchildren. He's a wonderful sculptor. And the different sizes that we produce miniature to monumental. The most common sizes is a sketch model, which is approximately 12 inches. A maquette is approximately 24 inches. Life size would make a man approximately 6 feet. We often do 8 feet and 9 foot. 9-foot statues are classed as heroic, and they're 1 1/3 larger than life. We also do 1 1/2 life, as well as 1 2/3, and twice life size as well.
So how do you go about it? Do you have compasses or clippers to do this scaling, or you just go by the eye? How do you scale the work?
Oh, the work is scaled up by the old-fashioned point system. And it's where you take measurements off a smaller model and enlarge them in proportion to the larger size, maybe 4 times or 5 times to get the size that you require.
So there is a certain mechanical process involved in enlargement.
Yes, it is quite math-oriented, much more math than I was expecting when I went into the arts.
So you look at figures a lot, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you ever go down from a large size to smaller size? No.
We have. Typically, it's the smaller size to
That
be able to present
grows
our
up,
idea, and then we grow from there.
Yeah. So your training, where did you come with your? Where does your training come from to face all this work?
Well, most of my training is in-house by my grandfather, my mom, who is a chemist and a wonderful businesswoman, as well as my father, who's a very well-known sculptor. I've worked under them. My dad has taught me just about everything I know. I've had a lot of really wonderful opportunities come my way. During my travels, I've seen a number of different foundries. I've attended a number of different art shows and seminars, courses in mold making, patina, restoration as well.
So this is really a labor of love. I can see that with you.
Oh, truly. I have a great job.
Yeah, and the 3rd generation in house. Yeah,
A 3rd generation in a family business.
in a family
I'm very
business.
proud.
If we could look at your shop end of the operation, that is where the work is done. Just a couple of minutes, if you could show us around, that will be appreciated.
Be my pleasure.
Come with me. Every day I see. You don't.
Karen is explaining more about the process, and I can see that we change color because we started off with a black rubber mold, and here we have this bright sunshine yellow. Could you go ahead and explain what we're looking at?
Yes, in the first rubber mold that you saw, we were using a material that was age-old. It was a polysulfide. The process hasn't changed much over the years, but the materials certainly have. This particular model is made with a polyurethane mold. It works well for casting in wax, plaster, or certain types of concrete, as well as some resins. We use the rubber molds to pour waxes to be able to create bronzes. This rubber mold is of a figure, and if I could get you to hold that, they fit together. And this is how the wax is poured in, is through the base and the feet. They're quite easily opened and the models removed. This one here does not have a wax. It acts as a negative to the artist's original.
You mentioned other materials for casting. Do you do other work but bronze here in your studio?
No, I am strictly a lost wax bronze foundry. In the past, we have done some sculptures in aluminum, but we do specialize in bronze. It's by far our favorite, as well as I do sell a line of artist supplies, sculpting materials for artists to make their own molds, clays, waxes, as well as the materials they would need to create their own works of art.
What else can you cast with? Did you say cement? Can you cast in cement?
Yes, absolutely, we can. Personally, we don't,
Yeah.
but it certainly can be cast out of a rubber mold.
It's done, yeah. Karen, you refer here to the lost wax method. What are we losing here? People might ask, what does that actually mean, lost? Why are we saying lost wax method?
We're saying lost wax. It's an age-old term. It's because when we have the wax encased in a plaster or a ceramic, when the wax is melted out, we call it losing the wax. We catch our wax, clean it so we can reuse it. Not only is it how sculptures are cast, it's also how jewelry is cast by lost wax as well.
So basically you're replacing the lost wax, you're replacing in your mold with the metal. So if you, in case of jewelry, you might pour gold, you might pour silver, you might pour copper in jewelry, and here in carvings, in sculpture, you pour bronze.
Yes.
Where the wax is melted away in high temperature, the room is taken by the metals, right?
Yes.
off the top, which is mostly dust that has got into the bronze. Well, we want our bronze to be very clean when it's poured into our molds. So they'll clean the inside of the container, the edge of the container, and then they will continue to pour the bronze into the empty ceramic shells.
How safe is it?
It's quite safe. The guys have been working together for more than 33 years. You'll notice that they're wearing leather boots with no laces. They're wearing gloves, more like a mitt not leak into their laces.
So why it's out? What happened now? Why is suddenly so quiet?
We've shut the natural gas off to the furnace. You can see the beautiful glow of the bronze. It's the heat from the furnace. We use natural gas to heat our furnaces. Most of our equipment, including our tongs, as well as the furnaces themselves, were designed by my grandfather and my dad. We've got 2 3-ton overhead cranes to help with the pouring. You can see the color of the crucible as it's raised out of the furnace.
It's amazing. Your dad is pretty close to that. So how hot gets them?
It gets quite hot. He is wearing leather chaps and protective gloves, as well as a protective vest as well to protect him from the heat. But it is very hot.
So now the machine, the crane gets away, so they don't have
There's-
any danger of the chicken.
Right. They've switched the equipment that we use to lift it out is different equipment than what we use to pour it. Now we're attaching the rack to help us pour it.
Correct. Where the equipment is made in, like in what country?
The crucibles are made in the United States, and our bronze is supplied from Vancouver.
How long one crucible is good for? How many times you can use it?
Each crucible is different, but we can use the crucible about 5 times. Every time we cast,
I'm sorry, he's now just stirring the brown.
well, he's scraping any dust that may have been left in the crucible, so everything is perfectly clean. So they'll scrape the edge of the inside of the bucket. They will scrape the pouring edge, which you will see in a moment, and then they'll be ready to pour.
What temperature is now here?
Right about now, we're about 2,400 degrees. You'll notice as we proceed, the color of the crucible will change. It will start to get darker as the bronze cools.
Why the fire is coming?
The fire is just some off-gassing of the material.
Back to the crucible, how many times you can reuse?
We can reuse it about 5 times. Each time we check it over for any cracks or any imperfections to make sure that we're using good, safe equipment. They're
And
thoroughly checked.
And they are made of
The crucibles are made of graphite.
what's that? Like very strong metal or
It's
more resistant to temperature?
It's resistant to temperature, and it's made of the same material as diamonds, except diamonds are very old and have been put under pressure. This is more of a raw material.
The shields which they have in front of, what they for?
That's just to protect their ankles from the sheer heat of the crucible.
Wow. What about face? Like you're pretty close, like your husband is pretty tall, but your dad is not so much taller. What about your face? How you protect from the heat?
Well, being exposed to the heat keeps people aware of their surroundings.
And
Now he's scraping the top of the container, so as we pour, everything is perfectly clean.
for a moment back to the place where the crucible came out from it, from the furnace. It's still red inside because from the heat. What's happening now? The they kind of wiggling.
Just jiggle it to make sure that it's
It's
all
equal.
rise to the top. He's just stripping the slag from the edge of the crucible and the edge of the crucible, so when we pour, everything's clean. In just a moment, the guys will pour 500 pounds into the empty, de-waxed ceramic shells.
How they know when they stop? This will start coming like they see when it's filled? Oh yes, I can see. Very nice answer. Watch. So they stand around this. What is the protection or what's the reason for it? What's the role for it?
The sand is there for safety. Basically, molten bronze on a cold cement floor would act like cold water on a hot frying pan. It would either bead and roll around, or a worst case scenario, it would bounce. So the sand acts as a sponge to absorb any molten metal.
How much brown you need for a certain culture?
We figure out the amount of metal because of the wax. There's a certain proportion of whatever the wax weighs would be the amount of metal. But because bronze must be continuous pour, we must melt more than what we require to account for any spillage, breakage, or leakage. Type of sand that is on the floor as well as holding the ceramic shells upright is a granite grit, often used for chicken feed to help their gizzards. We always melt more metal than what we'll require. So what the guys will do now is pour any remaining molten bronze into our own ingots to reuse the bronze at a later date. Our containers are emptied after every pour. You'll notice the color of the crucible has changed dramatically. That's how fast the bronze cools.
What next process?
We'll take them out, we'll break the ceramic shells off, and we'll be left with what you see around the back here. It's a little bit wild and hot.
Studio West, Karen, thank you very much indeed for telling us all about your work and showing us the most exciting process of casting. Thank you very much for having us. And of course, Karen is going to look after the Copernicus monument, and she's going to do the restoration on it.
Thank you very much for coming out and visiting us at Studio West. And you're welcome to come anytime and view our works in the gallery. People are welcome anytime. Thank you.
Well, thanks again for TV Polonia, Calgary, Eva Smithwick. Thank you very much.